Hello, everyone. It's channel update time with me, Get Daved. Hey, folks, Get Daved here. So, Mass Effect 2 is done. That's a good thing. I had a wonderful time, and I feel like the final 3 episodes of that series are some of the finest work I've ever done. People who watched will know what I mean. Anyway, moving on. Despite the fact that I've also made a video explaining my hatred for Mass Effect 3, particularly the ending, I would be open to doing that sometime in the future if a lot of people were interested. I think we'll take a break from Mass Effect for now, though. So that's what's going on there. Next up is going to be a revisit of an older game called Final Fantasy XII, which just got ported again to Nintendo Switch. It's the Zodiac Age version that's been on PS2 and 3 and 4, on everything. So that's going to be really interesting. I actually was ultimately quite disappointed in 12, but they really tidied up a bunch of things with the Zodiac Age update version. We'll call it a version. I was kind of thinking of revisiting it, and then I started taking a look, and it's like, okay, they kind of introduced some really interesting stuff, like a little class system and everything. And yeah, we're going to check it out, and I'm kind of excited to try it. So that's what's up. Item next. Oh yeah, and if you have any other requests or whatever, just let me know. If there's a game coming out in the not too distant future that you're pumped about. Link's Awakening is getting ported to Switch as well. I'm super excited about that one. I've had a couple people ask me about Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I am super excited about. I don't know if I'm going to promise to Let's Play that one quite yet. Because to be honest, a lot of the time I like to LP games I've played before. It just smooths things out. A lot of people want the blind run, but I've always felt like knowing what you're doing is better. It gives you better pacing as a Let's Play and everything. Because this isn't a stream, right? Like, we got momentum to keep up. Item next. YouTube has occasionally pestered me about both merchandise and memberships. I really don't see Get Daved channel merchandise. I mean, if someone's like, I want your channel artwork on a coffee cup, I might. I don't know. I might not. Anyway, but they're asking about memberships. Now, from my point of view, I was actually going to title this Why We Ain't Doing Channel Memberships, but I figured we might as well just pose it as a question. From my point of view, it seems like the worst of both worlds of like all the disadvantages of Twitch with all the disadvantages of Patreon and all the disadvantages of YouTube combined into one. Yeah, anyway, and I don't like gating content, so it's like early access, no. To videos, members only live streams, no. Pictures and polls, I could maybe go a little bit that way. If you want to see the one selfie a year I take, maybe, I don't know. Polls, maybe it's like, okay, maybe we'd have general polls, but like only members could vote on games or something. And sometimes I'll do that on Patreon too. I don't like gating content, but every once in a while I'll ask the people on Patreon, like, hey, what game should I do next? Or what sorts of games do you like? That's more the direction I go. Because, yeah, I don't think most people are like, you need to do Final Fantasy 5J, not the port to PSP. That's the one you need. Like, most people are like, I like RPGs. So, anyway. And then you get less of a cut than Patreon, and I don't know. Anyway, let me know if you guys wanna have a custom emoji, and then I'll announce it and make a post to welcome new members, I guess. Anyway, moving on. That's a thing that could happen. I think that's all that's new with the channel. Thanks for watching, everybody. Moving on. This is now like a devlog / update time because I started a company called Reclamation Games. Whoa, with the new logo. I did some rebranding work. I've actually been casually doing rebranding work in my free time for like 2 years. Ever since I made the logo, I actually didn't really like it. I might as well load stuff up and show you so you guys can all tell me you like other concepts better. This is a terrible idea. Okay, so this is like a bunch of different ideas I had. Ended up going with these two. Like one's a horizontal. I really like bold colors. This is the old imagery, and it kind of bugged me because it didn't really, like, abstractly, like a fire can have something to do with reclamation. Didn't really have anything to do with games. So I actually thought this was a pretty terrible logo. Maybe it looked all right. I thought the line weight was good in it, but that's really the only redeeming quality, and that's not a good place to be. It's no Nike swoosh, which is the perfect logo. It looks fast, kind of looks like the bottom of a shoe. It's very simple. A 3-year-old can both draw and recognize it. It's tough to beat. Anyway, so I thought about okay, well, something a bit more leafy, and then maybe I could try getting the D-pad stuff in here. Nope. Pull a cord on it, didn't really do it. I liked some of the colors. Normally I like really bold colors because why not? You gotta show you're not afraid, and modeled this after the ratios of the Super Nintendo button and the angles and everything. D-pad. The D-pad one is pretty obvious for a game company. I feel like this is pretty obvious too, but I like it. And it's kind of got that Overwatchy energy and this sort of 90s futurism. Anyway, so I thought that's got an homage to gaming. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the logo I'm going with. If you hate it, let me know. I'd appreciate all feedback, all criticism. So that's where we're at on that. And I'll probably redo the website sometime soon. I'm kind of busy right now, but the good news is I kept everything super simple so I could redo it later. Anyway, moving on to actual game development news. It felt a bit weird. I was in a hurry to finish a vertical slice, and what I've been doing for the last 2 months is, honestly, I went back and did hardening sprints. So the story goes back to, there was a movement bug in the game that was causing some strange physics during frame rate disruptions. So some background on video games. Most people understand the concept of frame rate, but there's usually 2 frame rates. There's one that the physics is running on that you don't see, and there's one that the update cycle is running on. And most engines work this way, actually. Early Nintendo games didn't, so if the game was overloaded, it would slow down. That doesn't happen as much in modern games. It drops frames. If the game slows down, it means it's slowing on the physics cycle. Anyway, so you have the physics that are updating on a regular tick cycle no matter what, so that you get more logical physics. And you have the update that's drawing the frames as fast as it can, limiting it to usually 60. So I was getting weird stuff happening when the frame rates dropped. And you might say, oh, you probably put some stuff on fixed update that should have been on update, or vice versa. It wasn't really that simple. And the thing is, a lot of the movement code was actually pretty old and rough. And I've sort of felt like I've gone through a sort of coding renaissance in the last personal renaissance in the last 4 to 6 months, where I've gotten a lot better. I'd sort of plateaued for several years actually, and then I feel like I sort of took another level to bump up another tier, and I'm doing stuff a lot more clearly and a lot better. So I wanted to apply a lot of that, and so I just trashing everything. I went through and refactored, and I've basically recoded the entire game in 6 weeks. About 80% of the code base has been replaced. It's shrunk by about 50%, and I basically took my old chicken scratch code and replaced it with something that I think is quite elegant, and not too elegant, because some programmers will be optimizing and then they optimize their optimizations and everything. This is, I don't know, it's good. A big part of that was going through to review this bug, and I sort of realized that just through atrophy, the movement and some of the stuff, I'd done so many videos on how I'm tweaking the movement just a little bit more and improving it just a little bit more, that had sort of regressed from the introduction of a couple new features. So I went back. One thing I'd been putting off because I thought it would be I don't know why. I just thought I shouldn't do it. Noel Berry, one of the programmers who worked on Celeste, they made all their movement code public. They just made a Git repo and put it all in there. And I decided to finally take a look at it, and I learned a lot from it, actually. First off, all of the movement code is in 1 mega file. That's 4,000 lines long. I do not do things that way. They give a reason for why it makes sense, and I agree with it. It's not my style, but I see why they did it. And it was kind of cool to study, because there was a lot of similarities to how we would do things, and other things were different. and it influenced me to do a couple things differently. Like, a really common thing, for example, is for jump physics. Everyone's like, you make the perfect jump by adding a little bit more gravity on the way down. So you have 9.81 meters per second squared on the way up, and then on the way down, we increase that by 25%. I was already pushing it quite a bit past that because I think that works for a range of height values and only for those values. And so if you have someone who can jump a little bit higher or something, you need to move further and further away from that. But the fact is, real life jumping, real life ballistics are too floaty. Real life would make terrible video game physics, not realistic at all. Terrible game feel. Anyway, pushed it a little further. Celeste, they have the gravity jacked super high. It's the scale's a little ambiguous, but something around 10 times the actual strength of gravity on Earth. And then they have a really low terminal velocity. And so, yeah, that influenced me to like, okay, I was already pushing it to double gravity. I pushed it to quadruple in a very narrow range of velocity. So I don't know if this stuff's interesting to you, but I think most people coding a platformer are looking at like Super Mario 3, Super Mario World, Mario 64, Mega Man X. I think I have a game that controls as well as Celeste or Mega Man X. I think you could say, yeah, the game feel is just as good as any of those. So yeah, that was really neat. Working on cutscene integration right now, which has been kind of interesting because you've got like the simplest version is just like dialogue boxes in sequence and two people standing still. But okay, well, I want them to move, but I don't want them to move every time. And sometimes they move when there's no dialogue, and sometimes they're moving while the dialogue is advancing and everything. So you need to, I don't know, there's just a lot of flexibility you need to build into it. And that's what I'm working on right now, and it's going pretty well. And that's the story. And then the things to do after that, I mean, I'll have to check. It's basically just starting the content creation engine and churning out content. So that's kind of cool. If you like what I'm trying to do on this channel, if you like the videos or like the game efforts or whatever, the support is so incredibly helpful. Yeah, when I'm done this all, we'll go into how. Anyway, it's extremely helpful and much appreciated. So if you want to support on Patreon, that's the avenue that's available right now for like direct financial stuff. Otherwise, just watching the videos, hanging out on the channel, all that stuff, all good things, all positive energy. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next Let's Play.